You're tuned into the Fresh Ice Hockey Podcast, brought to you by Zeno Pucks. Here are your hosts, Andy and Brian Matusi.
All right, and we're back. It's crazy how fast an entire season goes by when you really think about it in the grand scheme of things. It feels like just yesterday this season was getting underway, and now we've reached the end of our podcasting season anyways. So we're back, and I got Andrew with me to close out this season on a high note. Andrew, how you doing?
Real well, buddy. Real well.
Glad to have you back. Glad you guys enjoyed your European getaway. It seems like, it always seems like in life when we get a chance to step away from everything for a little while, you don't realize how much you needed it until you got it. So it seems like you guys had a great time and a lot of beautiful pictures from there. So, but I'm glad to have you back here.
Yeah, no, I'm glad to be back on here. So it was a really good trip. We got to see some really beautiful sights. Got to knock a couple things off of the bucket list. So all in all, it was a really good trip. Nice and relaxing, but 2 weeks is a long time to be away from your house, no matter where you go. So it's good to be home, sleeping in my own bed, and it's good to be back on here doing the show for the last time this season.
Yep. All right, let's jump into it. And we'll circle back and talk a little bit about your trip if you'd like before we go to break later. But let's start with the contract. It's funny, as I prefaced last episode by saying, apologize if I miss anything. Going back through my notes after I uploaded last week's show, I hit everything in my notes except the Matthew Nyes contract. So one of the bigger signings too, which I thought was funny that I missed it. Matthew Nyes, though, extends 6 years, $7.75 million per year in Toronto. That's a really good deal for him. It's a good deal for the Leafs. It's a nice long-term deal. It pushes any huge payments out to a way later date. But again, for the Leafs, they lock up a guy who's quickly becoming one of the best power forwards in the league. Matthew Nyes is only 22, and he's already built like a brick shit house. And it's a good deal for the team. Obviously, the Leafs are going to be going through a transitional kind of period here, so to speak, with Marner moving on, and we'll see how things go for them down the stretch next season. It seems like the regular season, obviously, with this group is never the problem, but we'll see how they manage things in this new era. But again, getting Nyes signed to a deal like that in an era where the cap's just going up. I mean, but when he starts to hit his prime, I'm sure this deal is going to look really good. So. I missed that one last episode and was like, oh shit, that was actually a pretty good contract. Again, considering there's not too many traditional power forwards. I've talked about it before, but we don't really have like the Wayne Simmons and Milan Lucic types anymore. So to have a guy like this on your roster is pretty good.
Well, I got to say too, $7.7 million a year for a 22-year-old is nuts.
It is, but it happens when these guys they start performing well from a young age. They break into the league at a much younger age now. And in the era of social media where there's endless amounts of footage to watch, it makes it a lot easier to learn about these guys sooner and get high on them sooner. And they start to build that value even earlier on in their careers now. So definitely well earned contract. No, I'm just saying in the grand scheme of things, the reason we get here so quickly now is because of things like this. It's the same thing when you look at Matthews, he makes 13 and a quarter. I mean, we knew from pretty much season one that this guy was going to be one of the best scorers in the league. And he's pretty much held up his end of the bargain with that. Playoffs has been a struggle for them, but as far as his performance in the regular season, which is where you make your money, or when you're paid, I should say, more specifically. I mean, he's proven it from a young age too. So, but again, good deal for the Leafs. Good deal for Nyes. Obviously, he probably could have gotten more if he got to the open market. But as an RFA, your options are kind of limited. And even if he signed an offer sheet elsewhere, the Leafs could have matched it. So, they end the drama. They get the deal done, and now everyone can be happy. The Leafs still have about $5.5 million or $5.25 million in cap space. Obviously, a team that's far from perfect, and losing a 100-point score is going to hurt, but they have a little bit of wiggle room to try and adapt their roster to address weak points throughout the season. So I like the move for the player. I like the move for the team, and we'll see how it holds up now that they're moving on from this core four era, so to speak.
Yes, sir.
All right, a couple more contracts that were signed this week. Again, there was so much that happened last week. There's really not nearly as much this week. Cam York extending in Philadelphia, so 5 years, $5.1 million per season for him is a pretty good deal. The Flyers, obviously, there's a lot of work to be done. I really don't like how tight they are up there, essentially up against the cap ceiling right now with the roster constructed as it is. Cam York's a good young player. This is a pretty low risk move with really high potential. I mean, Cam York's still only 24 years old. He's a great defender, or a good young defender, I should say. And you know what? If he plateaus kind of where he's at now, that with the cap going up, I don't hate this deal. If he continues to grow and get better and hits his prime, and he's a legitimate top 4 defenseman, then this deal is going to look great for the Flyers.
Yeah, I agree. And like you said, he's young. There's not too much horrendously wrong that the Flyers can do right now anyway, given where they are. But this is definitely a good step in the right direction.
Yeah, and you know what? And I've said this a couple times now too with this roster about the Flyers, is that with Rick Tocchet in charge now, I mean, it does put a new spin on everything. Yeah, this roster was rough, especially under Torts, but you bring in a guy like Zegras, who might be kind of a project to work on, and they have Jamie Drysdale, who they got from Anaheim as well, who's in the last year of his deal. It's not a perfect roster. I'm not at all crazy about their goaltending situation, but who knows? A good coach can make the world a difference. I mean, obviously, your reliable names are going to be your Sean Couturiers, your Travis Konechny's, guys that are Flyers through and through. I mean, Owen Tippett still, I think, has a little bit more to give. Noah Cates is another good young player. So there is some talent here, but who knows? With Mishkov still getting better by the day, you just never know. And Sanheim's obviously still great. I really wish Ryan Ellis would have worked out in Philly. He was one of my favorite defensemen, and I'm sad he can't play anymore. That's another one too, where like if he was healthy all this time, I mean, this is a whole different look, because Ryan Ellis is a top pairing defender at his best. So
right,
it's just too bad the injuries cut him short a while back. But who knows? With Talk there, this could be an entirely different look for this group, even with the crappy goaltending.
Yeah, and like you said, a new coach can go a long way, given the right circumstances. And I'm not going to harp on this too much, but we know Torts wasn't the right fit there. I think overall, this is a team that we're going to want to keep an eye on going forward. I think that, this isn't going to be an overnight difference maker as far as the coaching change goes, but it's definitely, again, the right step in the right direction. So I give it a couple seasons, and they'll probably be a team that nobody wants to mess with anymore.
Yeah, I was going to say, I do think, even though it's not a perfect rust, I don't think we're super far away from seeing the Flyers go back to not necessarily Broad Street bullies, but just a tougher nose hockey team to play against. I mean, Tog is going to want these guys, even the skill guys, he's going to want these guys to have a heavier aspect of their game. So I'll be interested to see who brings it and who doesn't.
Yeah, so will I. And like you brought up Owen Tippett earlier, and I'm glad you did. He started with the Florida Panthers, and I liked what I saw. Like, he wasn't anything mind-blowing to watch, but I could tell he was going to be a promising player, and I still, like you, think that he has more to give for this Flyers team. And if he can play up to his full potential, that's going to make a huge difference for the Flyers organization.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to Utah. So the Mammoth have actually had a really good offseason in my eyes so far. I know they were really high on Marner, wanted to get him, but it seemed like that him going to Vegas seemed like it's been set in stone for a while and just needed to be officially done. But you know what, the Mammoth, they get Jack McBain locked up. They get him in a 5-year deal, $4.25 million per year. Good depth player, mostly third line role, but he's a pretty effective skater. He can bring the body if he needs to. Last year I just had him up on my screen. Where'd he go? There he is. Okay, and 27 points in 82 games last year. So again, nothing earth-shattering. 78 penalty minutes though. So he's a guy that gets into the rough parts of the game, and sometimes it takes you to the box, but you need those big. He's a huge guy too, 6'4", 218. I mean, you need those big bodies that can play heavy. And if Utah's got aspirations, which it clearly looks like they do, of getting into the postseason, these are the kind of guys you're going to need in your lineup to survive the 2-month onslaught that the playoffs are. So obviously Utah has brought in Peterka. They already have a good young group there with Keller and Dylan Genther and who's the kid from Minnesota? Logan Cooley. Logan Cooley's on the last year his deal. So they have a lot of guys locked up for quite a bit of time now on the back end. Dursey, again, hopefully he's healthy this year. Sergachev, John Marino, another guy, hopefully he's healthy. And they bring in Nate Schmidt as well this offseason. This is a roster that's looking at a pretty good turnaround, and nobody's making more than Sergachev's making 8.5, and he's the most on the roster. So, I mean, this is a team with not a lot of money on the books in the grand scheme of things for any one player. But this is
a decent lineup.
Yeah, they also bring in Brandon Tanev too, which I mentioned on last week's show, and that's one that bummed me out. I was hoping Minnesota would get him because they need a guy that's. You talk about guys that play a heavy brand of hockey. I think Brandon Tanev is probably right near the top of that list. But this is a team that's going to be pretty good. Again, it's nothing mind-blowing, but as guys like Logan Cooley and Dylan Genther continue to get better and better and better and shoot the lights out, it seems, every night. And Clayton Keller's still only 26, which blows my mind. And then you bring in a guy like Peterka. I mean, this is an entirely different looking team just on the way the depth chart's going to shift now. So I'm excited to see what Utah can do. I really wish they weren't in my team's division, but this is certainly a group that if health is no issue, I can easily see them being in the playoffs at the end of next season here. I know they bring in Vanacek as Connor Ingram continues to go through the player assistance program, but they seem to be committed to Karel Vejmelka being the guy in net. I don't think he's a terrible goalie, but again, with a more well-rounded team this season, and again, crossing their fingers that everyone's healthy, I don't see a reason why this group can't make the playoffs next year.
I'm with you, and I have to take a minute to glaze Utah. This team, the Utah Mammoth, going into their second season, are already far better managed than they were throughout the entire tenure of the Coyotes organization. And they're only going into their second season, and you have to give credit to Smith Entertainment Group. Ryan and Ashley Smith wanted that team in Utah. They did everything they had to make it happen, and they've made it their number one priority, and it's already starting to pay off for them, and they already have a very devoted fan base. I just don't think there was a better move than relocating that team from Arizona to Utah. It's been fun, and I'm excited to see what they do this season. I'm excited to see where they go moving forward as far as arena and all that good stuff. I think if you're a Utah fan, you're in for a treat moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, this is a pretty solid group, and it's a tough. Now, I will say this: they, as good as I think they can be, they play in a tough division. You think of teams like Winnipeg and Colorado and Dallas, and I mean, it's kind of a take no prisoners division. I mean, it really is, but I still think they're good enough to do it. I mean, Chicago's really not there yet; they're just too far away. Nashville, we thought was great, but it still looks like there's work to be done there. So there's room for them to wiggle in. I mean, they're going to probably be gunning with Minnesota and St. Louis for either the top wild card or third in the division spots, but they'll have their work cut out for them in the postseason if they're going to go anywhere, because they're going to have to play the teams like Winnipeg and Dallas and Colorado. They're really going to have to, and so we'll see how it looks for them down the road. But as far as getting there, I think you're right. I think they've done an excellent job of just piecing this together and trusting the process, and not. Luckily for them, they've kept mostly the same management group as the Coyotes had, but they've just committed to not accepting a crap roster, and so the turnaround has been very quick. And again, having that young core group of guys that came over when they bought Arizona and transferred or relocated them, it's paying dividends now. It's taken a while, but it's really paying off. I think Logan Cooley's going to go out and have him earn himself like an $8 or $9 million deal this year. This kid, I've talked about, I talk about a lot of guys that played in college at University of Minnesota because I get to see them a little more under a microscope. But guys like Cooley and Matthew Nyes, and those are the kind of guys that are going to be earning these big deals too. Brock Faber's another guy on the Wild. I mean, he's an incredible defenseman. He was great at University of Minnesota. I've seen a lot of these guys play college hockey, and I just know that they're coming. They are coming. I'm telling you, and they're going to be getting huge deals. And I think Logan Cooley is not far away from that next one. I would not be surprised to see him explode for 80 or 90 points this season and earn himself a big fat payday.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. And back to the Mammoth as a whole, the Mammoth organization is a textbook example of the good things that can happen when you have an ownership group that truly cares and is 100% committed to making things happen.
And it's not Alex Mariuello.
Also that, yes. But I think there's nothing but good things on the horizon for the Mammoth. And like you said with Logan Cooley, I'm expecting big things out of this kid. So he's real young, looking real promising, and I hope that's how it plays out, not just for him, but for Utah as well.
Yep. All right, we'll shift over one more new contract. There may be a couple contracts I missed this week, but I think I got all the most notable ones here. I was so busy at work. Last one here, Josh Manson, 2 years, $3.95 million per year with Colorado, so he extends there. He's been a good fit in Colorado since he went over there. Just a reliable guy to drop him on the, you can drop him on the second or third pair, really wherever you need him, and you're going to get effective minutes from him every single night. So it takes a little bit of a haircut and pay, but he's not 28, 25, 26 years old anymore. So obviously the top pair there is still going to be Makar and Taves, and then I would think Girard and Josh Manson will be the second pair, and obviously Brent Burns joined the Avalanche as well in free agency, and with Keaton Middleton, I think getting some looks towards the end of the season, it seemed like too. I wouldn't be surprised to see him paired up with Brent Burns. You put the younger guy with the old Wiley vet, and I think that's not a bad move. So the Avalanche obviously are probably still one of the best teams in the league. They have, in my eyes, taken a step back, unfortunately. I think these playoffs are evidence of that, but it will be nice to see two things. First of all, we'll get a full season, and they'll have Gabriel Landeskog back, which is nice. I mean, I wasn't at all enthused about them re-signing Brock Nelson. I thought that was a terrible deal, but they kind of walked themselves into that. So it just kind of is what it is. I mean, truthfully, if I'm them, I would have kept Charlie Coyle over Brock Nelson, but what are you going to do? So we'll see what happens. This is still a very good team. Obviously, any team with the Nate Dogg on it is going to be good, and Makar and Taves. And Mackenzie Blackwood, I mean, we bitched up and down the block forever since this show's inception about Colorado's goaltending, and they addressed it last season, and it's now not even a conversation piece because it's just so good that you don't even have to worry about it. So there's some flaws in this roster. There is. It's not your father's Avalanche anymore, and that's a weird thing to say about a team that just won the Cup 3 years ago. But everybody's a little bit older now. I mean, again, Landeskog 32, Arturi Lehkonen 30, Velnichushkin's 30, and these guys aren't old as hell. But again, they're not all 25, 26, 27 years old anymore, and so. There is work to be done here. The Avalanche have about $4 million in cap space. So again, a group that if they identify a weakness throughout the season, I don't see why they can't go out and make some adjustments. Last year they proved that they are about it. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, and I'm not an Avalanche fan by any stretch, and obviously neither are you. But as a hockey fan, I'm very much looking forward to a full season of Gabriel Landeskog, as I think anybody should be at this point. His return was something that was waited for by everybody, and it was just I can't even think of what the word is. It was such like a fairy tale return, I guess I would call it.
It seemed impossible.
It did.
It seemed like it was just never going to happen.
Right. And the fact that it did is great for the league. It's great for the Avalanche. I'm just looking to a full season of him playing and, provided he can stay healthy, obviously. But a full season of Landeskog is about what I think this organization needs.
Yeah, definitely. So we'll see what happens. I mean, only time will tell. And again, obviously them not having Rantanen anymore hurts. Yeah. I don't know what the exact situation is with Marty Necas either. It doesn't seem like that's a match made in heaven. I understand there was some kind of discrepancy or some kind of issue taken with the amount of play time he had, but we'll see how that irons out. Again, if Necas isn't going to end up being there long term, this is a guy that may be a move to try and get some return on, or you go for broke this year and you try and run straight at another cup with him and just let him walk in free agency. I don't know. I mean, again, they're with the cap going up and this being the last year of Necas's deal, you either extend him at something that makes everybody happy, or you move on from him and you get, you'll have an extra $10 million in cap space next year between not paying him and the cap going up. You'll have options, and this free agent class could potentially be huge next year. I mean, there's right now, again, it's so early on because so many of these guys that are expiring next year. I mean, we're 12 days into free agency, so nothing's set in stone yet, but the big three are still all, as of right now, pending free agents. McDavid, Kaprizov, and Eichel still don't have deals yet. So I would assume before too long, Eichel will probably have a deal with Vegas. I can't imagine him wanting to leave there. And Kaprizov, I'm sure before too long, will have a deal with the Wild. They've made it very clear from the beginning that, that they have every intention of signing him, but The one that kind of makes me wonder, especially with this Avalanche group and how talented they already are, with Connor McDavid and the rumblings around there, they got to look. It's all or nothing for the Oilers. If he goes, the team goes too. It's like, is that a guy you try and go after as well? I mean, everybody would like a player like that, but not everybody is in a spot where they'll have the kind of money to sign a player like Connor McDavid either. So for this Avalanche team, you really got to wonder how they weigh their options with so much uncertainty in the for next offseason.
And I just, since we're on the topic, I got to bring this up. Speaking of Connor McDavid, when my wife and I came back from our trip, we flew into Toronto. We live in Cleveland, so it was way cheaper to fly in and out of Toronto and then just drive a couple hours home to Cleveland after that. But when we flew back home to Toronto, or when we flew into Toronto, we were getting our bags, and Connor McDavid was in the Toronto airport. He was sitting in one of the lounge. If you're a frequent flyer, certain airlines have lounges that you can sit in. It's paid access, but he was in one of those, and I'm sure that's just gonna, if certain people saw him, that's gonna just add to the rumblings of, oh, what's gonna happen with McDavid. Before people get into that, I just want to point out he is from Ontario. He's from Richmond Hill, I believe. So. He's not in cahoots with the Leafs or anything. Well, I mean, he might be, but I doubt it.
Well, he trains with Austin Matthews in the offseason, I'm pretty sure.
But I mean, he's from Ontario, so to see him at the
there.
Toronto airport, that's not something that should surprise anybody. Like, I mean, it's the offseason. So,
Yeah.
But I just wanted to throw that out there. I thought that was pretty cool. Also, I don't know if this is stupid of me or not, but I was not just the airport, but when we stayed the night in Toronto, I made sure I was walking around in all Florida Panthers gear. Might as well have been wearing a target on my back, but nothing bad happened. So
you should have gone up to Connor McDavid wearing them and like, hey man, nice to meet you.
Nah. I got nothing but respect for that guy. So he's the best player in the world right now. So no reason to stir anything up.
Yeah, I get that. Definitely get it. All right, well, let's see here. Last one then. Last note I have on this side of the show. Tyler Johnson officially announcing his retirement at 34 years old. Obviously, won a couple cups with the Tampa Bay Lightning. Went to, I think, was part of 4 teams that went to the final because he was part of that triplets line way back in 2015. So, seems like forever ago, that team. But great career. I believe he was undrafted as well. But just an unbelievable career. We talk a lot in this sport about guys that are smaller players not really having a chance to make it in the league. And he's kind of he's one of the good success stories. Again, he's not a huge guy, 5'8", 191 pounds. That's what he's shown at on NHL.com. And yes, he was undrafted, but for an undrafted guy, how does 433 points across 747 games sound with 2 Stanley Cups and let's see, and 3 finals appearances. Sorry, the year Tampa lost to Colorado, he was in Chicago. So, but 3 Stanley Cup final appearances, 2 Stanley Cup championships, 433 points for a guy that's undrafted. That's pretty fucking good. So, congrats to Tyler Johnson on a great career. Fought and clawed for everything in the league, and he earned it 100% of the way. So, congrats on a great career for him, and enjoy the retirement.
Yeah, I echo that as well. Sucks to see guys like that retire at such what I would consider a young age for retirement, but it is what it is. When it's time, and only So,
yep, exactly. Well, and the evidence was there that this was probably coming. His last couple seasons with the Blackhawks and with this past season with the Bruins, it seemed like the end was near, but you know what? I appreciate a guy that's trying to stretch every bit of it out, get every last bit he can out of this league. So good on him. And again, to be undrafted and to be a crucial part of 2 Stanley Cup teams, there ain't nothing wrong with that.
No, not at all.
All right. So before we go to break, is there anything from your trip you'd like to discuss with our lovely listeners?
I mean, nothing that's hockey related, but other than Connor McDavid at the Toronto airport, but all in all, it was just a good trip. The first thing I want to say is if you've never been to Europe, and I don't mean all of Europe, I just mean even just one country. If you've never been there and it's something that, is doable for you financially, I highly recommend that you try and do it, in your lifetime. It was just, we went to Spain, France, and Italy. Overall, the whole trip was about 2 weeks. It was a European cruise through Virgin Voyages. One thing I have to say about it that was really nice is that Virgin Cruise Lines, they're adults only, so no kids. It's 18 and up. So that actually turned out to be real nice. For my wife and I who don't have kids, that's something we try to look for. I don't have a problem with kids. When I'm trying to relax, I don't want to be bombarded with children running around. With that being said, we started off, we flew into Barcelona, Spain, spent a couple days there. My wife's brother lives in Europe. So he did some traveling there before we showed up. And then he met us in Barcelona. We spent a couple days there with him, and that was really fun. Barcelona is absolutely beautiful. After Barcelona, we got on the cruise ship in Barcelona, and we went to Mallorca. Saw a really, really beautiful cathedral there. I'll post some of these pictures on our Instagram story as well, just so people can see them. Just Spain is beautiful. After that, we went to, you could call it the south of France. We went to Corsica, and we went to Monaco as well. Monaco is one of the wealthiest. So Monaco's technically its own country, quote unquote, even though it's part of France. Monaco, I would say Monaco to France is like Sicily to Italy. But Monaco is one of the wealthiest countries in the world. In order to become a resident there, you have to make a certain amount of money or have a certain amount of money before they let you even live there. Just absolutely beautiful. For those of you who are familiar with the casino Monte Carlo, arguably the most famous casino in the world. It was also in 007 Casino Royale. We went there, checked that out. It was pretty cool. Again, very beautiful. Corsica was beautiful. And then we ended the cruise in Italy. We went to Pisa and Florence, saw the Leaning Tower of Pisa. Turns out the Leaning Tower of Pisa is the only thing that Pisa has to offer. Still really cool to see. Florence was absolutely beautiful. And then we went down to Rome, spent a few days in Rome, saw all the big things, the Trevi Fountain, the Colosseum. The Colosseum was a huge thing on my bucket list. I've been wanting to see that my whole life. So it was just really cool to be able to see it and go inside of it in person. The Roman Forum, the Pantheon. We went inside the Vatican. And one thing that happened inside the Vatican that I thought was really cool, Brian and I come from a very strong Italian family with deep Italian roots. And the Matussi side hails from Rome. And when we were in the Vatican, we went to St. Peter's Basilica, and we went on the roof because we had tickets to go to the top of the dome. And on the roof, there's an inscription, or there's a plaque, and inscribed on it was our last name. And it turned out it was a gentleman by the name of Antonio Matteucci, and he was the curator of the works for the Vatican Temple in the late 1800s into the early 1900s. So it was really cool to see our last name in the Vatican. Also, the Vatican is unreal in person. It is so beautiful. The architecture, the artwork, everything is unreal. The Sistine Chapel was beautiful. Then we went to Pompeii, saw the ruins of Pompeii and Mount Vesuvius. That was beautiful. And we went to Sorrento. Everything about it was just... It was a perfect trip. That's the best way I can put it. If you've never been to Europe and you can make it happen, I highly recommend you try to in your lifetime, because I kept saying this the whole time just to annoy my wife, but I'm a big views guy. And the views are just unmatched there. The scenery is beautiful. It's such a great place to be. Everybody was friendly. I want to go back. But all in all, great trip, but we're happy to be home.
Yeah, we're happy to have you back home too. So it'd be, of course, you get home, and I was like, oh, we got to figure out a time to hang out, and then I'm going out of town for work this week. So it's just a never-ending cycle of us traveling everywhere but where we live.
Yeah, but we don't. That was our big trip for the year, so it'll be back to business as usual around here for the foreseeable future until my wife books another trip.
So, all right. Well, love it. Love that you guys had a good time. And again, glad you're back home. As much fun as you guys had over there. It's nice to have you back here. So,
no, I agree, man. It was good to see you yesterday. So,
All right, so we'll go to break here. When we come back, I am going to review a couple of things from the last couple of episodes that Andrew did not have a chance to give input on because he wasn't here, but I felt they were significant enough that we should at least talk about them again. And then we will close this show later on with a Blue Jackets corner and kind of go over everything we learned from this season and so on and so forth. So we'll be right back, and we'll get this show wrapped up for the year. This is a Fresh Ice Hockey Podcast.
It's hockey season, and you're looking to work on your stick handling or maybe even your shot, but ice time just isn't an option for you right now. Luckily, our buddies over at Xenopucks have got you covered. They've developed an elite off-ice practice puck that, in addition to looking like the real thing, is the same size and weight as a regulation hockey puck to give you that authentic feel on the end of your stick. It works better than other off-ice practice pucks on almost any surface, whether you use it on hardwood, carpet, concrete, or even asphalt. Xenopucks glide like a real puck on ice. So if you're looking to improve your game without setting foot on the ice, head over to www.xenopucks.com and get yourself a puck. Check out their merch selection and be sure to follow them on Instagram at Xenopucks.
All right, and we are back. So, Andrew, did a couple of shows while you're gone. You listened to both of them, so these won't be completely foreign topics, but the Panthers, we'll start with the Panthers. So since this show's inception, they are the only team we've seen win a Stanley Cup. So as a fan of the Panthers, obviously that's been great for you. Want to give the props to Bill Zito, very boldly claiming, hey, we're going to re-sign all these guys and we're going to be able to run this thing back. Everybody kind of doubted that. Well, they're pretty much there right now. There's still some cap dancing they're going to have to do, but which we'll get to in a sec. But if the broader picture here is that the Panthers are essentially running it back for now what would be a third time with essentially the same core group of players. They got everybody locked up. They have 10 of their core players locked up for until at least 2030. So this is a great spot to be in if you're a fan of the Florida Panthers, and you are. So I'll let you kind of take it away here. What are your thoughts on this roster getting ready to go at a third Stanley Cup in a row?
Ultimately, given that Bill Zito is the financial wizard that he is, I'm truly not surprised that he was able to get Marshy and Bennett and Ekblad all signed. You know, he was confident right from the get-go that we could get it done. Bennett was very clear almost immediately after they won the cup that he didn't want to go anywhere. He wanted to stay here. All these people thinking, oh, he's going to go to Toronto. They were saying that about Marchand too. Look, Bennett never wanted to leave, and I knew he wasn't going to. I knew no matter what happened, they were going to get Bennett signed. But this also goes to show, again, what a good ownership group can do, what a good GM can do, and what a winning environment does. I mean, these guys, even Bennett could have gotten more money than he did. He's still got an 8x8, and that's still, compared to what he could have got on the open market, that's a good team-friendly deal. Marchand and Ekblad taking great team-friendly deals. As far as Marchand goes, as far for the organization, I think they still a little overpaid for him. But you said it on the episode where that gets Marchand what he would have wanted out of like a 2 or 3 year deal over the course of 6 years, and he can still retire whenever he wants in there, and Florida still has to pay him. So it still works out well for Marchand, and it's good for the Panthers because now you have him to try and run it back. And you know, I gotta say, God bless Aaron Ekblad. He was very adamant about, Florida is our home. I met my wife in Florida. All of our friends during the off season live in Florida. He goes, we rent a house when we go visit family in Canada. He goes, but Florida is our home. That's where our whole life is. We don't want to pick that up and leave. And he proved it by taking a very team-friendly deal, I think. And now the Panthers are still loaded and ready to go. We still got a few minor things we got to make, issues we have to address. They're a little bit over the cap right now. As much as I don't want to see it happen, I think you got to ship out Evan Rodriguez, which sucks because he's been very instrumental in this team's success. So I like Evan Rodriguez, but I just think certain guys you got to let walk. And I was very adamant about if they're going to get Ekblad, that they're going to have to let Rodriguez walk, and it's looking more and more like that's going to be the case, especially with them signing Mackie Samoskevich. They didn't sign him to any crazy contract or anything. In fact, I'm pretty sure he's lower than $1 million a year. But that guy deserves a shot too. And I liked what I saw from him, and I think he's got a very promising future in this league, especially with this team. So we'll see how they go about this. If Bill Zito can find a way to keep Rodriguez around, I'm all for it. I don't see anything efficient that would allow that, though. So
yeah. Just looking at the construction of the raw, I mean, and again, I'm not in Bill Zito's head, but you look at the transactions and you look at their cap space. The one that sticks out to me, okay, first of all, it seems like Rodriguez is the odd man out here.
Right.
And that would still not put them under the cap ceiling because they just extended Maggie Simiskevich, but they also signed Mackenzie Entwistle to a 2-year deal. Again, another guy you can stick in your bottom six and he'll work out somewhere. I think the move I'm making, if I'm Bill Zito, I don't know what you ask for in return, but again, needing to be mindful of the salary cap, I assume you're going to see something to the effect of Evan Rodriguez and Jesper Boquist both go out the door. You fill in the gap Rodriguez leaves by playing Mackie Simiskevich up in the lineup, as there is a lot of potential there that just he hasn't had the proper looks to earn that spot, but I think you're going to see him there. And then Jesper Boquist, again, a good depth player, but I think that's why you bring in a guy like Mackenzie Entwistle, who's making league min. As you move those two deals out, to get you under the cap, and you bring up a guy who's not going to put you over the cap. And I just think the math seems to favor that outcome the most. I just don't see really any other way for them to do it right now. And it'll suck for them to lose Rodriguez. He's a pretty good player. And he was a pretty important part of both runs, I would say, and he's an effective player. But again, the most important thing for them to focus on is keeping that real core group of players together. Obviously, the big three on the first line, Kachuk, Barkov, and Reinhart, and they bring back Bennett, and you have Verhaeghe there, and that third line, Marchand, Lindell, and Lusterinen is unbelievable. You keep every one of those guys until you can't. And so, unfortunately, Rodriguez, he's just what they call, he's a cap casualty. It just is what it is. He's a great fit. He's a beloved player by the team and the fans. But again, just looking at the way the math is, and I don't think they signed Mackenzie Entwistle by accident to a 2-year deal. You look at Rodriguez, who's also got 2 years left. I think the end goal is the same thing: is you slot this guy in the lineup because you inevitably have to lose a guy like Rodriguez.
Yeah, I will say there is one move the Panthers made this offseason so far that I'm not a fan of, and that was signing Daniil Tarasov, or bringing him in. Tarasov sucked in Columbus. That's the best way to put it. And even when he was doing his conditioning stint down in Cleveland this past season, he sucked. I just don't think he's a good goaltender. I understand you got to have somebody to back up Bobrovsky. However, you have a good prospect pool down in Charlotte right now. I mean, they just went to the Calder Cup final. Granted, they didn't win, but they're still a great team. And I think they have some really good young talent down in Charlotte. And I think you need to start giving some of those guys a chance too. With that being said, I'm not a GM in the NHL for a very good reason. And Bill Zito very clearly knows what he's doing. And I've voiced my displeasure in the past on things he's done, and it's only ever worked out in our favor. So I don't want to knock him too much. I'm just personally, I'm not pleased with Tarasov coming in, but it is what it is.
Yeah, and I want to look at this from two angles. First look, Tarasov, there's no way around it. He wasn't good in Columbus, but you look at the environment he was in, he really never got the opportunities he needed to get. I mean, I kind of said the same thing about Jet Greaves too, but he never really got the opportunity he needed to have for a sustained period of time. The goalie development in the Columbus organization has been tough, essentially since Bobrovsky left.
Right.
I mean, Elvis just hasn't been really good enough. Obviously, there was the unfortunate passing of Matisse Kivlenieks as well, which threw a wrench into things. Jet Greaves, I mean, until this past season, I mean, obviously he stepped it up in a big way. But it's been kind of a rough ride for goalies there in general. So I don't hate that they signed him. And again, he's going to get to learn even more under Bobrovsky. He's already 26 too. So, I mean, the window's closing for him to make his name in the NHL, but Sergei Bobrovsky's window to play in the NHL is also closing as well. So you bring him into an organization like the Panthers, where he's going to get to learn under one of the best goalies in the league, a very long tenured goalie in the league. And he's, and again, a goalie with great discipline, just as far as taking care of his body and the way he studies and learns the game. I mean, he's one of the best in the business. So if you're going to take a chance on a goalie, I like this. Obviously, I'm sure they would have preferred to keep Vitek Vanacek, but first of all, he's a guy who probably wants to try and earn that starting job in Utah over Vejmelka. He's going to at least have a chance to be the backup there. But he's a guy that wanted to get a little bit more money. And yeah, the difference in their contracts is, Vanacek and Tarasov is only about $500,000, but we just talked about the Panthers can't afford a fucking t-shirt right now. They are so up against the salary cap ceiling. I mean, they're going to, again, we just talked about, they're going to lose, a fan favorite player because of the cap more than likely. I mean, they were in a spot where they had no choice and they just had to go out and find somebody they could plug in the net behind Bob, and to bring in another Russian guy, I think will build that kind of that camaraderie. And I should make sure Tarasov's Russian. Watch, I feel like an ass if I said that. Yeah, he's Russian. Okay. Yeah. I feel like an ass if I said that and it was actually like he was, Belarusian or
I was going to say, just because his last name ends in OV doesn't mean he's Russian.
Yeah, say, look at Barkov. Barkov, I believe, has Russian blood in him. He's just from Finland, but I digress. But yeah, so for the Panthers, it's all about, you just have to put a warm body in there. And again, learning behind a guy like Sergei Bobrovsky is good for any goalie's development. He's about as disciplined as any player in the league. And it's good to have that level or that tier of a goalie teaching your backup showing him the ropes properly, which I'm sure he had some good development in Columbus, but learning behind Elvis versus learning behind Bob is, no offense to Elvis, but there is a valley of a difference between the two, as far as their accomplishments and as far as just how good they are. So, it's maybe not the best move, but it is what it is. Everything else on this Panthers team is almost perfect. And again, if they're able to accumulate cap space, if they have good health all season long and they're able to accumulate cap space, they may be able to go out again and bolster that defense at the trade deadline. That's the only thing. Losing Nate Schmidt did suck for them. But I'm not worried in the fact that I think they'll be able to, assuming health isn't an issue, they'll be able to go out at the deadline and find another guy they can plug in to the lineup to really solidify that decor. The top four seems to already be spoken for with Ekblad and Forsling and then Jones and Mikkola. But, the Panthers have prided themselves and won championships by making a complete roster twice now. So I would say they're not done yet, but yeah, it's overall, I think you hit it on the head. There's really just nothing to be upset about with this team. I mean, the fact that we were able to pick on a backup goalie signing, I think shows how well this team is constructed.
Absolutely. And I don't disagree with you on that. Like I said, I don't think this makes or breaks the team anyway. And obviously, as a fan of the team, I want them to be successful. It's just right now, my hopes aren't very high for Tarasov, just based off what I've seen in Columbus and when he was with Cleveland on a conditioning stint too. But obviously you want him to be successful, but overall, I don't really have anything. It's hard to complain when your team is back-to-back Stanley Cup champions. I'm interested to see what they do with the remainder of the offseason. And I don't want to make any predictions or anything right now. We'll do that when we come back for next season. But overall, very, very pleased with the Florida Panthers and very, very grateful for Bill Zito, the Viola family, and Paul Maurice as well.
All right. I dig it. So let's move on now. Let's go across conference and talk about Vegas. So the big free agent this year was obviously Mitch Marner. Signs a $12 million a year deal for 8 years, gets signed and traded with Toronto. It sends him over to Vegas. Vegas technically right now is over the cap, but with Petrangelo's career likely being over, that money will come off the books and that'll get him back under the ceiling for the start of the season. Initially people were saying, it's cap shenanigans, this and this with Petrangelo, but no, it just looks like he's not coming back, unfortunately. So, but for Vegas, they bolstered their lineup and add a guy again, obviously 100-point scorer with Mitch Marner. And this is a team that's, I know Marner's been dogged on in the playoffs, but man, I'm telling you, with this Vegas group, everybody performs. It seems like it's hard to get the scoring to dry up for this team, and with elite talent like Eichel there, and he's going to be on that top power play with Stone and Eichel and Hurdle, and so he's going to be getting great looks. And you could say he had the same thing in Toronto, but Vegas isn't cursed. So, and that's kind of a lame duck, lazy take, but it is what it is. There's something about Toronto where it never clicked. And I see that I don't foresee that being an issue in Vegas. These guys know how to win. They've already done it with this group. I just see this deal working out very well for Vegas. I think this, again, it's tough because he hasn't shown the work in the playoffs, so it's tough to say. But truthfully, what other teams in the West do you look at and say that they can beat Vegas right now?
Exactly. And, I know everybody's been dogging on Marner, but I'm not going to. I think the guy needed a change of scenery, and sometimes that's all it takes for a player. I don't think the chemistry is there in Toronto for anybody, and chemistry goes a long way. Obviously, look at the Panthers, look at Vegas, two great examples of that. I know, obviously, there was a lackluster effort on his part during the playoffs, and it was extremely noticeable to everybody. But I just think he was over it in Toronto. I think that's what it came down to. And obviously, if your heart's not in it, you're not going to give everything you have. So maybe he needed, a change of scenery, and maybe that's what it'll take. And I truly hope it does, because he's an unbelievable player when he plays to his full potential. And I think he's going to fit right in Vegas, and that's just going to make Vegas even more lethal than they already are. They're already one of the most feared teams in the league, and they pretty much have been since their inception. And this just adds to it. And I think Marner's a good fit. When they brought him in for his media availability, he was smiling the whole time. I can't even tell you the last time I saw him smiling when he was in Toronto. So I think this is a great pickup for Vegas. Everybody knew it was going to happen. I know people were trying to speculate on other places he could end up, but he was going to Vegas before this season was over. I promise. Like that was already decided. So
yeah,
as a fan of hockey and just from the outside looking in, I'm okay with this move. I like it for both sides. I like it for him, and I like it for Vegas.
Now for the team, there is, again, I think Vegas is probably one of the top teams in the conference. Dallas, I would say, is another team that's right up there. I've been well spoken on, I think, the tweaks Dallas needs to make, but again, I trust Jim Nill over there, so I don't want to have to put too much thought into that, although we will talk about Dallas in a little bit. For Vegas, there's just going to be a few things that are going to be kind of a changing of the guard, so to speak. Losing Pietrangelo is, yes, they get the cap savings, but that's losing one of the best defenders in the league and a right shot guy. I think Vegas took a very, again, team-friendly gamble on Caden Korczak. They give him a lot of term, but not a lot of cap hit, or not a lot of money. So you need a guy that can play on the right side. I still think the top pair is going to be Theodore, and I would assume probably Zach Whitecloud slides up to that top pair just for the synergy of having that right shot guy on your top pair. But I would not be surprised to see Caden Korczak getting minutes with Noah Hannafin on the second pair. Vegas also brings over Jeremy Lazan in the Nick Hague trade, which, again, that's another one that sucks for them to lose Nick Hague. Again, a guy who was a big part of their cup run, but they're still warm bodies that can play good defense. They have three very good defensemen in Theodore, who is, I would say, is elite, and then Hannafin, who is right there as well, in Whitecloud. But having Braden McNabb there, if he's still effective, that's huge, because he's another guy that can shut it down when needed. And again, I think they're taking, just as far as the term goes, taking kind of a gamble on Korczak, but it's not a lot of money that they're spending. So if that pans out well for them, I don't think he's going to fill the void that Pietrangelo leaves, but by committee, I think they can replace his minutes. It's not going to be easy, but under a good system that Bruce Cassidy has Vegas playing, I don't think it'll be too much of an issue. Again, and then they lose Nick Waugh up front in the Mitch Marner trade, but they bring in Colton Sissons from Nashville in the Nick Hague trade. So again, not necessarily completely filling the gap that Nicholas Waugh left. But again, with a team that's this talented up front, I don't think there'll be any issues up front replacing that void, because their top nine is still so freaking jacked. It's unbelievable, assuming Mark Stone's health isn't an issue. But there is going to be some growing pains. It's just tough to see how this team isn't one of the best in the league next year.
No, I agree with you 100%. My only concern right now, looking at Puckpedia, they're about $7.5 million over the cap right now. So they got some small tweaks they got to make.
No, remember, Petrangelo's 8.8 will come off.
That's true.
Once the season starts, they will be under the cap. To your point, they're $7.6 million over the cap, but Pietrangelo is $8.8 million. So they'll be about $1.25 million under the ceiling once the season starts. Because in the summer you can be over the cap, but once they have to make the roster cap compliant, they'll shift his contract to LTIR. They'll actually have some room room to wiggle if they need to make a depth signing, if they have injuries, or if they need to call someone up. So they will have some room, but because of the LTIR, they won't be able to accumulate cap space throughout the season. So that may hurt them come deadline time. But anyways, continue.
No, that was pretty much the gist of it. Was that that's my only concern, but I had forgotten about Pietrangelo and that they can move him to LTIR. So that'll help things a long way. Speaking of LTIR and cap space, I feel like we should discuss the new CBA at some point this episode.
Yeah, we probably can. I almost would rather wait till next offseason to do that, solely because before the 26-27 season starts is when it'll kick in. So I'd almost rather revisit this then, because then it'll really, it'll be a factor. Yeah, I'd say it'll really be a factor in the way these teams are constructed and all this. So, but it is worth mentioning that, again, there are big sweeping changes coming to this. We've seen a lot of teams dance around the cap the last decade or so to win the Stanley Cup. I think the stat is that of the last 10 Stanley Cup champions, I think 0 have been cap compliant.
Well,
which is hilarious. It is. and a couple of teams, there have been a couple of pretty big offenders, but a couple of teams were, I think the worst or the best one was like $1 million or something over. The closest a team came, the 2019 Bruins were $300,000 under the cap ceiling, I think, but they lost to the Blues who were over that year. So, if I remember correctly, they were the closest to winning the Stanley Cup that would have been cap compliant. And I think a lot of the teams that have made the finals haven't been, or the teams that have made the finals and lost were cap compliant. But the Bruins were in 2019 were the closest to doing both without actually doing it.
Oh, there you go. But again, it's just a loophole in the system, and obviously it's coming to an end, not this season, but the following. So interested to see how that plays out, but I guess we'll address that when the time draws near.
I like it. It is kind of fun to see teams just juice it up right before the playoffs, just because it's like, holy shit, that's how you get these crazy super teams in us. Not super teams, but these crazy elite cup contending teams. Is shit happens and they work around it. Now, I think most infamously Tampa Bay with the Kucherov with that surgery that he got right before the start of the 21 season, and then Chicago with Patty Kane in the 2015 season. Those are probably the most egregious ones, but shit happens. Again, we've said it on this show. Anybody was allowed to do it. So Don't be mad at the teams that did it. Be mad at your team for not doing it. And maybe that's – go ahead.
I was saying nobody was bitching about it till Tampa won the cup. So,
well, it maybe, and again, maybe it's recency bias, but I remember a lot of people being upset about the Patty Kane one. But then what's funny is the playoffs start and Patty Kane, it's prime Patrick Kane. So he's shooting the lights out and everyone's like, oh yeah, this shit's awesome. Never mind. So it's funny how quickly the complaints went away. Other than the teams that lost to the Blackhawks in that playoff run, everybody else was, I would say, pretty okay with it. But there were a lot of ruffled feathers, but again, recency bias is a part of that. The Kucherov one was the most egregious. Just the way the player handled it and the team handled it, I think, kind of left a more sour taste in everybody's mouth for that reason. But yeah, it does happen. But you know what? It doesn't matter now because again, it'll be coming to an end, and so it is what it is.
All
right. Let's go. We're gonna go a hard turn. We got 2 more good teams to talk about, but we got one team that I want to get back to because, again, I swung and missed on this last episode with the Sharks. So talked a little bit about the Sharks previously. I didn't mention their number 2 draft pick, Michael Misa. He's going to be a pretty crucial part of what they're building going forward here. And so I feel I would have been remiss to not say, hey, they just drafted this guy who's probably going to be an everyday player in this lineup when they're hopefully competing for championships down the road. Now, I can't for the life of me see if he signed his entry-level deal with the Sharks yet or not. I'm going to have to...
I'm not seeing it.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm scrolling on their non-roster players just to see. I don't believe they've signed him to his ELC, but believe me, before too long, he'll get the deal signed there. But the Sharks, I just wanted to talk about this with you because, again, it's something where I think Michael Misa, by the way, no current contract, so that's fine. But again, he's going to be that group of forwards they're building, all those young kids that can shoot the lights out. He's going to be part of that too. So it's kind of an ugly roster right now. It is, but when you see what's on the way, you're just like, who gives a shit, man? This team is going to be a vibe.
Yeah, looking at the team right now, nothing truly jumps off the page at you. I know you and I talked.
Yeah, like other than the young kids there, like the Celebrini and Smith, there's nothing.
Yeah, and I mean, you and I talked about this right before we started recording today. They bring in Alex Nedeljkovic from Pittsburgh to back up Askarov. You know, I mean, Nedeljkovic is a well-known name, obviously. Nothing to sneeze at, but I'd say he's a solid backup for this team, especially a team that's really trying to give Askarov his shot as the starter and keep his name in the NHL. But yeah, overall, there's just really nothing that jumps off the page. I mean, there's some well-known names on this team, like Logan Couture, Tyler Toffoli, but I mean, these aren't superstars by any means.
Logan Couture's done playing. He's retiring.
Oh, he is. Yep. I mean, Jeff Skinner signs here for $3 million. Good for him. You got Barclay Goodrow, but again, there's no big names on this team other than the young guys. So, but I with that being said, I think the future is bright for this team. I think they're headed in the right direction. I didn't even see that they brought Klingberg on.
Yeah, which and again, that's the kind of the point I wanted to get to with this conversation is, yes, there's a lot of excitement to be had, and I mostly wanted to pump the tires on Michael Misa because, again, I think this is a guy who that top line eventually is going to probably be Celebrini, Smith, and Misa, or you could split up Smith and Celebrini. But I'm telling you, it's exciting as that can be. My point I want to make is there's still a long way to go because we're talking about a team that to get to the salary floor brought in Ryan Reeves, Jeff Skinner, and John Klingberg. Like this, there's not the sexy names on here. Plus, they're talking about moving on from Mario Ferraro, which I don't hate. Just timeline. He's a good defender, but timeline-wise, he's not going to fit what they're doing, I don't think. I mean, by the time they're really competitive, I think he's probably going to be in his early to mid-30s. So I understand the desire to move him on an expiring deal, low risk move for a team that would bring him in. Sharks also brought in Dmitry Orlov too, which again, you're just filling in your lineup. And Orlov's a good defender, but again, a guy that doesn't at all fit what they're doing in San Jose as far as the timeline goes. So we'll see what happens. But
yeah. It's a very, for lack of a better term, it's a very average looking roster right now.
Yeah. So the hope for Sharks fans here is that, look, they go this season and the kids all take a huge step forward, and all of a sudden they're watchable and they start, filling in the SAP center again, because that building looks so depressing with all the gray in it when the seats are empty. So it'll be nice for them to start finding more ways to win games, second year under Ryan Warsofsky. I think there are better days ahead. But for them, I would not have any kind of playoff expectations. But I do like that they're building a somewhat watchable team now.
Yeah, I agree with you. But like I said, this is just going to be one that we're just going to kind of watch until something significant happens. And again, like you said, hopefully these young guys really break out and really start to make names for themselves. So, but again, that arena is very depressing to look at when the seats are empty.
Yep. All right. So let's jump over. Let's talk about the Stars. So they've actually made a move since the last show I did. I talked about the Stars and that as good as this team is, the missing piece of the puzzle is solidifying the defensive core. The Panthers have proven it now 2 seasons in a row that you have to get a group of 6 that gels. And they're halfway there. They have 3 bona fide good defensemen, but they have, until recently, they had a Matt Dumba problem that they had to take care of, and they shipped him off to the Penguins, who are actively trying to be bad. So I think Matt Dumba's a perfect guy to go there. Now they're under the cap ceiling now, which is good. They have about $2 million in space, but they still need to move Ilya Lyubushkin. I think it's just a guy where I don't think there's any level of talent there, because again, they want to bolster this defensive group, but they just don't have the money. I talk about the Panthers not being able to afford a t-shirt. I mean, the Stars are kind of in the same situation, just in a different way. Yeah, they're under the cap, but they don't have a complete roster right now. The Panthers do, which is why they're pressed to offload some kind of money so they can get back under the cap. But for the Stars, I mean, if you're going to have a solid decor, I still think the move is to get Jason Robertson out of there. I know it makes the team a little worse up front, but the money you get back from that, you can go out and find yourself a really nice, good defenseman for that money. Even if you want to keep Ilya Lyubushkin, great, and you want to find another guy to plug in on the bottom pair with him, but you need somebody that can play with Thomas Harley. You just need somebody that can play with him. Or if you can go out and find a right shot, put somebody up with Heiskanen. But they need a number 4 guy. And if you want to keep Bush and play him with a guy like Bichelle or something like that on the third pairing, great, that's fine. But as much as it may suck, I think the best course of action for the Stars is you got to ship Robertson out while he's got a ton of value. And not to say that his value is going to go down or something, but ship him out while it's an expiring deal that still has an RFA year on it, so that the team getting him gets control, get maximum value, and bring in a guy that glues this defense together, because I'm telling you, these Stars are so close to being Stanley Cup champions. It's not even funny.
Well, I'm glad you said Jason Robertson, because that was exactly what I was going to say. Is my first pick to ship out is going to be Jason Robertson, and I think that's just the least detrimental hit to the team, in my opinion. As far as Lyubushkin goes, I'm indifferent whether they keep him or not.
I think he sucks, but you know what? They already shipped Dumba, so I'm like, if you can offload one of those crappy deals, and fine.
Well, and that's it. But I like your take of ship Robertson out, get max value for him, and like you said, he's an RFA, so whoever he goes to still has complete control in the long run. So I just think that's the smartest decision they can make right now. I mean, they're already set as far as goaltending goes. Jake Ottinger is one of the best goaltenders in the league, so you don't have any concerns there. Up front, the team looks pretty decent. Yeah, you don't. If you're a fan, you don't want to see Robertson go, but I think from an unbiased view, that's the smartest move to make in this position.
Yeah, exactly. And now I'm going to preface this by saying I'm not saying this player specifically, but again, needing a player on the right side in the defense. Think of all the best like right shooting defenders in the league. You think of a guy like a Makar or like a Charlie McAvoy or something like that. That's the kind of player you need to go after. And as good as Jason Robertson is, and as much as it would be a hindrance on this offense to not have him there, that's why you brought in Randon. You need that big dog in the playoffs, and they got him. And that hasn't been Jason Robertson. If you look at Jason Robertson's career, and I've been very critical of him in the past, because in the biggest games he has actually gone quiet over the last couple of years. And so I want to make a point that Rantanen, who is one of the most prolific playoff scorers in this era of hockey, is on your team now. You can afford to take the hit of losing a guy like a Robertson. They're about the same age. Yes, Rantanen's a little older, but this group is so talented offensively already, but they bring back a guy like Duchesne too, who helps bolster that lineup. They have the talent of Johnston, who's only 22, which scares the shit out of me. And Rope Hintz, he's 28. If you can get a little more out of Tyler Seguin before he really tails off. I mean, this is a talented group offensively. So yes, losing Jason Robertson hurts, but you'd rather lose him and have a McAvoy or Makar type of player. And not that he's going to be as good as those guys, but if you can find a guy that can bolster your defense to that level, you have that elite defender. It's worth losing a little bit of the scoring because you've already replaced it with Rantanen, because he scores enough for 2 players. And truthfully, he's that good. He scores enough for 2 players. So really, if they can move out a guy like a Robertson and bring in that defenseman, I really think they're just that one elite defender of the way from completing this puzzle and having a Stanley Cup championship kind of roster.
Yeah, I gotta say, I'm looking at their defenseman right now. I can't see a world where Alex Petrovic is going to stay in the NHL.
Hey, listen, he was good when they called on him down the stretch. He was. I will give him 100% credit there. I've heckled him at a lot of Milwaukee Admirals and Texas Stars games, but you know what? To his credit, every time he's been called up and called on to slot in the lineup, he's done it with very little issue. So, and that Leon Bichelle too, he played in some pretty crucial moments this year, and I thought he fit right in there. So I can almost be, even more so than I would have been probably last year at this time, I can be convinced that this team is one elite defender away.
I won't doubt you. I'm just going to play it safe and say I'll believe it when I see it. But I don't know. We'll see what they do.
And trust the process with Jim Nill, because as good as Bill Zito is, Jim Nill is probably second only to Bill Zito. I would say Jim Nill is smart and calculated, and he's probably already got something in his head that's smarter than anything I've ever said on this show. But I'm telling you, it just seems like it seems like this is such an obvious solution. And maybe it's not. You have to remember, too, these are real people, and you can't just trade a guy and expect it'll be a perfect fit overnight, because these guys have chemistry. These guys are friends. They have families, and their families are friends with each other. Like, this isn't something that it's like the NHL.
They're not objects.
Yeah, they're not. It's not. They're not going to be guys where they're going to move out and it'll be, oh, it's just fine the next day. I mean, these are real people, so there are real repercussions to these trades, but looking at it solely from a hockey aspect, it seems like this is the final piece of the puzzle. And as much as I fucking hate the Dallas Stars, it's almost equally as painful for me to see a team that's this good that just can't get over the hump. I mean, there's no reason that they shouldn't be going to the Stanley Cup final every year. And they bring back Gulletson as the coach, which, do with that info what you will. I don't know if I'm crazy about it, but it seemed like DeBoer is just not the guy, which is fine. And I don't know. It just seems like they're so close, and you'd hate to, as much as I hate Dallas, it'd be so painful to watch a team of this talent just let it slip away because they were too stubborn to make the hard trades.
Right. And I mean, unfortunately, that's one of the biggest keys to success. And, you know, I hate to keep bringing up my own team, but I think a good example of that was the Huberdeau and Matthew Tkachuk trade. Everybody was furious about it, but look how it worked out.
And you know what? Think about how tough it was for them losing Brandon Montour. But you know what? And with both of those players, Tkachuk and with Montour, yes, they were huge shifts for the organization. The Tkachuk and Huberdeau trade more so, but even Montour, a guy who ate up minutes in their playoff run that ended against Vegas and then their first cup. I mean, that was a guy who was a vital part of that team. I thought that when I don't know if I said it on the show, but I remember thinking like, man, this team's fucking cooked with that guy's minutes gone. They'll be good, but they ain't going to be that good. Well, they by committee replaced him and they ran it back and won another Stanley Cup. And yeah, it was tough. It's tough to let players that are that good go, but when you build correctly, which the Stars to this point pretty much have done, it's again, you can't be afraid to take that big leap. And yes, these guys are all, again, real players with real families and real lives. And I get that, but the business stops for nobody at the same time too. And I think the Stars, again, it's just a matter of, it's time to make that move you don't want to make. It's time to do it for the greater good. And you know what? Jason Robertson will go wherever the fuck he does go, hypothetically, he'll fit right in. He'll shoot the lights out every night and he'll be great. You stick him with a center that's even moderately skilled, and Robertson's a player where most nights I feel like he can drive the play of his own line. I mean, he's that good. But, you know, I'm critical of his clutch performance in the playoffs, but in regular season, I mean, he's going to be on the sheet pretty much every night. So this can be mutually beneficial, but for the Stars themselves, again, it's all about the greater good. It's all about winning a Stanley Cup. And I think this is just the move they have to make.
I'm with you. I mean, we'll see how it plays out for them this year, but I'm with you. Like, I don't like Dallas, not to the extent that you don't like Dallas, but
yeah,
it's painful to see a team that is just this stacked not win a cup. And obviously I want my team to keep winning, but when you have a roster that looks like this, a team that's this good on paper, I mean, it was rough to see them go out this past season. So I don't know, man. Well, I guess we'll see how it plays out for them. But this looks like a team that should be winning multiple cups in a decade.
Yep. And you know what? Again, with the right move, they could be right on the precipice of this, or right on the cusp of this.
Yeah.
All right. Let's move across back to the Eastern Conference and let's talk about the Carolina Hurricanes.
Yay.
There's a kind of a lot to digest with this team. Now, I will preface it by saying I know they're in this situation because I think they wanted Marner bad from the beginning. I mean, it's documented that they wanted him. But the Canes, who, by the way, have $10.5 million in cap space still, their whole roster is signed for this coming season. They don't have any guys that are free agents at this exact moment. Their whole roster is signed, and they have $10.5 million. That could bode very well for them at the deadline. But the way the roster is constructed, it's obvious. They've addressed the scoring issues that we've talked about in the past. Stankoven's a good player. Yes, he's not the biggest guy, but he's a guy that's going to be a performer. They sign Ehlers. Again, another guy who's had his issues in the past, but a guy that's going to be able to get on the score sheet. There's enough scoring talent here where I feel comfortable not picking on them for it anymore. It's not pretty. Yeah, I still think Jesperi Kotkaniemi's contract is one of the worst ever. It's not perfect, but this is an effective enough lineup where that decor can shut it down and kind of cover up the gaps that the scoring may leave to be desired on some nights. However, what the fuck is a team with $10.5 million in cap space doing with Frederik Andersen as their starting goalie?
Yes, thank you. My God, man. Is this going to turn into how much we were bitching about Colorado? Like, Freddie Andersen is not it. And I don't know what it's going to take for this team to finally realize we need to do something else here. He's proved again and again he's not cut out for this. It just is what it is. And you can argue that the team didn't play well in front of him. I've said this a lot. You've said this a lot. At some point, you need your goalie to step up and do his fucking job. And Freddie Andersen just isn't capable of that.
And you know what? And I'll even go this step further. You mentioned we bitched about Colorado's goaltending forever, but you know what? They finally fixed it, and it's been fucking outstanding. And it hasn't been a problem. We have not picked on them once since they made those trades, largely because both of them worked out very well. But it's so bad in Carolina, and for all the good moves that this team has made, and there's a lot of good moves that they've made. I mean, they're not paying anybody especially a lot. There's a reason they're $10.5 million under the cap. For all the good moves that they've made, they just fucking refuse to accept that Frederik Andersen is not the guy. And maybe this is the year where they let Kochetkov finally take the reins and try and see if they can make him the number one guy. And if that's the move, great. I can appreciate that and I can respect that. And again, Freddie Andersen, the deal is only a 1-year deal, so, and it's bonus laden as well. But maybe this is the year Kochetkov tries to take the reins. And if that's the case, I don't hate it per se, but again, he hasn't proven it either. In his sample size, he hasn't proven that he is the guy yet, and that they didn't even go out and try and make a move in the goalie market just kills me. And I mean, maybe behind the scenes they did, but I heard nothing from any of all the 10,000 insiders and all the talking head shows. I heard nothing about Carolina doing anything to improve their goaltending. I heard two things. They wanted more scoring and they wanted Marner. Well, they didn't get Marner, but they got the scoring addressed a little bit. Again, re-signing Stankoven, I think, is going to age well. He's still so young. They get Ehlers, bona fide NHL player, to get him locked up for a long, long time. But for the love of God, I mean, everybody and their mother was right on the nose with Colorado, and we're all right on the nose with Carolina, and they just fucking refuse to accept it, and it's just irritating.
Well, one thing I want to say about Andersen, and I know what you're going to say in response to this, and I'll let you say it because we've had this conversation before, but this guy didn't do anything to prove he's that guy when he played in Toronto either. And I won't go as far back as Anaheim, but he didn't. He was
actually good in Anaheim. The reason the Leafs locked him up all those years when he was in Toronto was because of how well he played in Anaheim.
Yeah.
But what happened when he went to Toronto? It started instantly. The fucking injuries, year after year after year after year. This guy, probably the last 6 years has been just an absolute injury magnet. And the team refuses to accept it. Yes, when he's healthy, he's very good, but he's never fucking healthy. And he's never healthy long enough to build up that consistency to be among the elites. And I can appreciate keeping the guy. And I don't want to dig on the guy personally, because again, when he's on it and at his best, he is a good goalie, but he's just not healthy enough ever to stay consistent and be that guy. And part of being that guy is being healthy, and that's not him. And so it is what it is, but it kills me that this team refuses to accept that they are so resistant to change with this one thing. And it just makes you want to, if I had hair left, I would rip it out.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. And again, this is one of those things we can harp on it every week on the show. And back to what you just said a few minutes ago, I'm hoping this is the season that they realize, all right, well, this ain't it for Freddie Andersen. We got to figure something else out here. If it's me, and again, I'm not a coach, but I would give Kochetkov that chance. I mean, first of all, he's younger, 9 years younger to be specific. Freddie Andersen's already 35 years old. So, I mean, as far as the window for him being an elite goaltender, I mean, that ship has sailed as far as I'm concerned. But he's not even consistent, and that's where the problem lies.
Yeah, 100%. And again, who knows? The trials and tribulations that a hockey season puts a team through could change everything. I mean, who knows? I'm just going to throw a name out there. Let me pick a team real quick. All right, Nashville. That's actually perfect. Nashville. Let's say Nashville comes out next season out of the gate and just shits the bed completely, and they're the worst team in the league. Would be a nightmare scenario for Preds fans. All of a sudden, UC Saros is a name that they're interested in training. Well, the Canes got all the cap room in the world to make that move. I mean, they could go out in season and find the guy. The one thing they've done, even though they haven't addressed the goaltending, they have allowed themselves with all this cap space. They could go out and make the worst one-sided trade ever for the other team if it means they can bring in their big goalie. I mean, there are opportunities here. So as much as I've just spent time dumping on them, I should reel it back in a little to say that they are at least in a spot where it can be corrected. But again, they've shown no interest in doing that to this point. And re-signing Freddie Anderson, for me, unless it's just a stopgap because they couldn't find a goalie, and again, if that's the case, it is what it is. But if that's not the case and you're just re-signing him because he's your guy, then that's just poor management. And again, maybe they'll wait till next year and see who sucks and see who they can pluck a real goalie from. But I don't want to say that's a bad gamble to take because the Canes have proven they can win in the regular season, and then that's not an obstacle. So maybe it's not the right way to phrase it, but to go into next season unsure of what the future holds, I just think it's a stupid gamble to take when you have all the room and cap space to go out and get a real goalie now.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. And, we're not in the front office, so we don't know what the thought process is there or what the conversations are being had. This is all speculation at this point on our end, but I'm just trying to look at this from a common sense standpoint, and I'm just not seeing it right now. That's all.
Well, if I was in Eric Tulsky's seat, and I would never be because he's way smarter than I am, but I'd be calling up Vancouver right now and being like, hey, you just signed Demko, so he must be your guy. What do you want for Artur Shilov's a guy that, again, is a young guy who still needs to be proven, and I get that, but just had a great championship run with the Abbotsford Canucks and has had some NHL time to show he can play. I mean, there's so many options they can go. I guess the thing that kills me is even though a prospect goalie, again, is an unproven asset, I mean, the asset they have now is a proven asset that has proven that he's not good enough. So I guess just, again, the lack of willingness to gamble and take a chance on another goalie is the thing that's bothering me the most. It's like Dallas with the defense thing. I've picked on them since the show's inception of not really having that solid decor that they need. And they've tried to address it somewhat half-assed, I would say. Again, bringing in Ryan Suter and Chris Tanev wasn't the be all end all. Chris Tanev could have worked out well there, but it just didn't. But it's kind of the same thing here. There's results that have shown that this is not enough. And to this point, it hasn't been addressed. And I think that's the thing that's irritating me most. Because like the Stars, this is a team where, and not as much as Dallas, because Dallas, it feels like they're right there. But for the Canes, it feels like, man, they are not horribly far off here. Make the fucking risky move. Go bring in that guy that you got to take the gamble on. Just do it. I mean, it can't be worse. And you know what? If it is worse, then you go back to what has quote unquote worked to get you into the playoffs in the past. If it's so wrong that it's just shitty and it ain't working, then you bring back your stopgap guy, I suppose. But for the love of God, do something. It's just annoying.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%, man.
All right, let's see what else I got on my list here. Not I'm all mad. This is a good direction to go with this. This one I wasn't even going to mention because for us, it being in an American market, it doesn't matter. But Rogers Sportsnet, if you've seen on Instagram, is jacking up the prices for their premium service, with some people paying as much as $325 Canadian per year, which I think equates to about like $270 American, which in the United States, hockey fans have the luxury of, if you subscribe to ESPN Plus, I think it's like $120 for the year. You get all out of market games for $120 for the year, as opposed to, $270 American or whatever. I mean, you're paying less. We're paying less than half the price for the same service. And yeah, like the Rogers Sportsnet, you are subject to local blackouts. But from what I've seen from the fallout of this, is that Canadians are already dealing with a lot of games that are blacked out, even if they're out of market. So. But we don't get that in America. If it's not a game that's in your market, or if it's a game that's out of your market, you can get it with ESPN Plus. But the thing is the price. I mean, people were paying like $250 a year Canadian, and now they're going up to $320 a year or whatever, which it seems like for the same shitty service and all the blackouts that they face is just a big ripoff. So for our Canadian listeners, I'm sorry that the media giant is wringing you out like a washcloth, but it just seems to be the way it's going. But I just want to take the time to say that Sportsnet with a real dirtbag fucking move, offering no change in their service. And I understand, these companies are getting these huge TV deals, and that money needs to come from somewhere. But man, ring out your fucking advertisers while you're ringing out the people who keep your lights on. That just kills me.
Dude, that doesn't make any sense to me. God, man, it just sucks that we're in we're in the era of streaming everything. That's the downfall of everything as far as the consumer goes. It's just aggravating. I don't want to get into this too much because it pisses me off. And it's not even just Rogers. This is something across all sports.
Yeah.
That a lot of networks have done, and it just pisses me off.
I will say, and again, I want this to be a more direct comparison just to drive home the insanity of it, more so for our American listeners. The Canadians, you already know you're going to be getting squeezed on this. So for our American listeners, if you subscribe to ESPN Plus, you pay about $120 a year, which it is what it is. It's not a horrible price in the grand scheme of things when you see how expensive shit is. But again, the only games you're really getting blacked out are games that are either on the stupid ass NHL network, which is the most useless piece of media in existence. Or if it's your local market, then you're blacked out, which again kind of sucks. For me, it's great because I don't live in my team's local market anymore, so I don't have to waste $25 a month on a Bally subscription, for God's sake.
Yeah.
But in the grand scheme of things, you're getting, again, they advertise it over 1,000 out of market games. That's $120 a year. Okay, great. In Canada, they were the premium package. Subscribers were already paying $182 a year American for this, and now they're going to be paying like, I think it's, I want to say it's like 270 American or 250 American. So they're paying more than now they're paying more than double what we pay to get more games blacked out. Because again, I've seen a lot of fallout of people who are saying they're getting games blacked out that they're not in market for, which is crazy to me. I don't understand the Rogers plan. I don't have it. I don't know what it all is. But when subscribers are saying that they can't even get games that are out of market and they're paying more than double what we pay, to me, that's just a big red flag. Like, hold on, hit the pause button. What the fuck's going on? I mean, that's just outright robbing your fucking customers. So that's too bad to see that corporate greed. And I mean, Rogers and Bell own Canada as far as media is concerned, but Rogers just sticking the finger right in the faces of all their subscribers is pretty shitty. So to our Canadian listeners, we're sorry that again, the big media giant is fucking you over. And it's too bad. It's too bad.
Yeah.
So I hope they lose subscribers from it too. Truthfully, I don't want to pick on anybody, but I mean, I also don't feel bad picking on a media giant that's blatantly robbing its subscribers. They were already getting hosed. I mean, they were already paying 40% more per year for the service they had before, and now they're paying double. I'm like, yeah, go fuck yourselves. So just wanted to get that in there because, in a world like this, we can't let corporate greed win. So not without getting our licks in. All right. One more thing before we get to our Blue Jacket segment to close the year out. I had this thought a couple weeks ago, but it's never really found its way onto the show because there's just been more pressing matters, but I don't know why this came to my head, but do you think Pat Maroon's going to the Hall of Fame?
I want to say yeah.
Yeah.
I first ballot, probably not, but I would say
God,
yeah.
no. God.
I would say yeah. I just don't see how a 3-time Stanley Cup champion doesn't. And now, but before you counter it, I understand that there are average players that end up winning multiple cups, and it wasn't directly because of them. But I should point out that especially in St. Louis, Pat Maroon was instrumental to St. Louis's success. Not only that, it's his hometown team, but I think overall he's a Hall of Fame worthy candidate.
Yeah, I mean, the guy goes to 4. Here's the thing: Pat Maroon for his career, 848 games played, 323 points. I mean, the guy played over 800 games in the NHL essentially as a grinder or enforcer or whatever. 68 playoff games, 19 points in 68 playoff games. I think his points per game in the playoffs is actually higher, but he was, I would say, a vital part of all 3 Stanley Cups he won. He wasn't the difference maker, but again, that physical brand he plays just wears guys down over time. And I don't think it's an accident that he went to 4 finals in a row.
Right.
Not saying he's the driving force, but he is such a key contributor on just with the physical brand of hockey he plays. And I don't know. It's tough when you look at the stats, just as far as how much he scores, but in the grand scheme of things, again, first of all, he played over 800 games in the NHL, which is nuts. For a guy that was drafted in the 6th round is crazy. That by itself is crazy to be a 6th rounder and play over 800 games, but to have the sustained success that he had as one of the best power forwards in the league, just as far as the physicality, obviously not that, nice scoring touch, but I mean, he was he was a big dog in the league for a long time, and winning 3 cups in a row and going to 4 in a row. I just think, look, it's not going to be first ballot because again, he doesn't have the prolific scoring that most of these guys in the Hall of Fame have. But I got to imagine one day he ends up in there. So I just wanted to ask you that because I'm like, man, it's such a, I don't want to say divisive topic, but it's definitely a conversation piece just because of that lack of scoring. But man. Again, you don't get to the finals 4 times in a row and win 3 in a row by accident.
I'm just gonna say, I obviously not the first time, and hell, probably not even the second time he gets a chance. But I think it's bullshit if he doesn't eventually end up in the Hall of Fame. That's just my opinion. I say he ends up there, and rightfully so.
Yeah, I think so. All right, so
to the Jackets.
We'll move from that, and we'll do our final Jackets corner of the season. Before we close out the show. So let's kind of run down the list here.
All right.
With the Jackets. I mean, this was in every way possible. This was a pretty chaotic season. There's no way around it. Before we could even come back for training camp, obviously Johnny Gaudreau tragically passes away, and it just immediately starts everything on a sour note. I mean, we were talking 2.5 weeks ahead of training camp it happened. And it just right away felt like, oh man, this is just, I mean, the loss itself was just so tragic. It was earth shattering. I mean, I think I didn't even want to talk about the Blue Jackets from a hockey angle for like 2 months. Even when we did our season preview for them, I felt almost gross talking about it just because the tragedy of Johnny's death is so much bigger than any sport, any game. But because this is a hockey show, and we mentioned it before, this is where we have to talk about. So from a hockey aspect, losing again a guy who's just so talented like that and such a vocal player and a leader, and that by itself would have lended itself to saying this season it's going to just be a piss poor in the tank season. Don't expect anything. It's going to suck. It's going to be awful. And instead, what we got is a group of guys who rallied around each other and supported one another and fought and kicked and screamed and just came up short of clinching the playoffs. Stupid ass Montreal had to get in. I don't feel bad for that either. I don't like the Habs. But nobody does. This team fought and kicked and screamed all season and just would not go away and just came up short at the end. And it was just a really tough year, but despite that, there were so many wonderful moments that this team had, despite the tragedy that occurred. All the great things the organization did with the Gaudreau family, first and foremost, keeping them involved with the community and showering them with the love and support they needed. It was just such an unbelievable tragedy. And so the community and the team just did such a great job supporting them and keeping them uplifted. And between that and the, Monahan, it was his first year with the team. He comes in, he has that emotional goal. He scores his first one with the team. I think that was the first home game too. And just, it was just such an unreal moment in the Stadium Series. And there was just so many high points in this season. And a lot of guys had really good years. Matthew Olivier really, drove his stake into the ground as I'm the tough guy in the league. I'm the captain now. Like this, I'm running this shit. Anybody can try and fuck with me, but they can't. And so a great season for him, earned him a nice long extension and earned him generational wealth. Sean Monahan had a good resurgence, I thought, this year as well. They move out the Line A deal, which proved to be great because, oh God, it was just a mess with him here. But the Russians, I thought Marchenko had a good year. Voronkov had a good year. Those guys obviously are on pretty team-friendly deals and still need to get more out of them. But Boone Jenner, after he gets injured to start the season, comes back late and I thought was effective. Cole Sillinger, I was hoping he would take a bigger step this year, but it is what it is. He's still so young. I still think there's another level. Chinikov too. I think it was either him or Voronkov that was injured. Now I can't remember all of a sudden, but
it was Chinikov that was injured.
Yeah, and so they were without him for a while. Kent Johnson, again, still so young. There's still the ceiling is sky high on him and on Fantilli, who I thought Fantilli had a really good, productive building year this year. I thought he was I thought he was great. I mean, just this forward core, and we'll talk about the guys they brought in a little bit, but just the group they had here, so much was expected of these guys to fill in the gaps with the, with Johnny's passing. And I thought these guys did everything that was asked of them and then some. Dean's first year coaching the team too. A lot was dropped on him to be a new coach in a new organization and to have to guide a team through a tragedy when the tragedy happens before you can even get to training camp. Just the world was, I don't want to say the world was expected, but the weight of the world was on these guys to keep it together this season and to have the run they did. Was just outstanding. And so we'll go through this group by group, but I want to start with the forwards. Andrew, what did you think of everybody up front this year, and who did you like? What did you want? What do you want to see more of next year?
The big one for me, aside from Adam Fantilli, because it's obvious, but it's going to have to be Ken Johnson for me. The guy is just, if he can stay healthy and keep producing. Sorry, I was leaning back. If he can produce the way he did this year, this kid's going to be an elite hockey player. He's only 22 years old, and he's showing to be very promising moving forward. I loved everything I saw from him this year. It's just like every game, it seemed like, KJ had a goal. KJ made a great play. I love the kid. He's so fun to watch. Since I started watching Columbus, I've been a huge Dmitry Voronkov fan. That guy is a unit. And mostly just because of his size, but he is a gritty guy and he is not afraid to rough people up. And I love it. Kirill Marchenko had a great season, I thought. They're bringing in Charlie Coyle this year, so I'm looking forward to that. But as far as last year went, Matthew Olivier, what a season he had too, especially on the back half. All these guys, they all just, it's hard because they all stepped up where they needed to, and they were just a hair short of making the playoffs. I mean, it's really hard to single out anybody on this team because everybody stepped up for the most part where they needed to and exceeded everybody's expectations. So as far as Mikhail Putia goes, he was kind of hit or miss for me, and I think he still will be. I'm sure there's people that are going to disagree with me on this. I think he's a very good AHL guy.
Yeah, it does. It feels like he's the odd man out with this group.
Yeah.
And again, we'll get to the three new guys that are going to be joining that forward group, but it does kind of feel like he's the odd man out as far as the NHL roster.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm not trying to take a dig at him either, because I mean, he's still fine. He's odd man out here for me. The Russians, everybody loves the Russians on this team. The Russians that are on this team. I mean, I don't know, man. I don't really have a bad thing to say about anybody really from this past season. I mean, it's hard when they exceeded expectations. I mean, the only person that I can really take a dig at right now is the goaltending, with the exception of Jet Greaves.
Oh, well, there's a reason that we're doing the goalies last, believe me.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm with you. And, originally I was a big fan of, I wanted the Russians to be their own line and just be this, legendary legacy type of line where these guys just fill in every night. But the reality is they're probably all going to be playing on different lines next year. Just with the path their development's taken. I mean, Marchenko is a top line player, top six at his worst. But I just, I think we're going to have a future where they're all split up. But yeah, you know what? I like what everyone did this year. I'm still very high on Adam Fantilli. I mean, I truly, his path of development is going to be a lot different, I think, than most guys will be. But I really think we're a couple years away from him being one of the best players in the entire league. It's going to take a bit of a different path because he's not coming into a system where he's got that big name he's got that big name bona fide NHL stud to really help bring him up. Like you think of like Pasternak on the Bruins is a great example of this. A guy with a pretty high upside, but went late in the first round, but he comes into an organization where he plays with David Krejci, who was his favorite player growing up, and Patrice Bergeron and Brad Marchand and Chara and all these guys that have won. And they turned him into one of the best scoring wingers in the entire NHL. I mean, Fantilli didn't kind of have this luxury where he came into that, and he's not the talent level like a McDavid where he doesn't need that support because McDavid's just so goddamn good it doesn't matter. So I think while it's going to take him a little longer, I still think he's going to get there. But yeah, I like your comments on Kent Johnson. It did seem like a lot of nights he was getting on the score sheet. And so hopefully that can continue for him and he'll get better because, I mean, him and Fantilli should really be running the top line where you can plug in whatever winger you want them to play with. I mean, in a perfect world, everybody's development pans out and all of a sudden your top line is, Johnson, Fantilli, and Marchenko. But yeah, this forward group, I just think as much pressure as they were under, given everything that had happened, I thought pretty much all these guys, I think, had career years. It seemed like everybody was just on it. So
that's what I'm saying. Who do you rip on? I mean, as far as the forwards,
well, yeah, I don't think there is anybody to, and I think that's the point, and that's the good takeaway of this is, despite the adversity that was slammed into their faces, it didn't seem to faze them much, and if anything, it built them to grow stronger together, and it worked out. And now again, we look and they bring in 3 new guys. Charlie Coyle, Miles Wood come over from the Avalanche, and they also bring in Isaac Lundestrom to just again round out the bottom 6. And I mentioned this before with Coyle and Wood. It's not the sexiest move you can make, but first of all, you have to ice an NHL roster. You have to be over the salary floor. Like, you have to ice a competent NHL team. You can't just pick a bunch of guys from the minors and fill in the gaps there. So they get guys that are going to be able to play NHL minutes. Coyle is such a good utility player that, they can really slot him in anywhere. It seems like he's going to be bottom 6, probably top penalty kill unit. But if you need him power play, net front, you need a guy that can play a heavy game one night, depending on your opponent. I mean, he's really a great Swiss Army knife in that fashion, that he can just go wherever you need him to. And, he's not going to be a liability no matter where you plug him in.
Correct.
And Miles Wood, to a lesser extent too. I mean, he's going to be in the bottom 6, but he's not a guy where he hits the ice and you're like, oh, what are we getting this shift? It's not like that. So the moves aren't the greatest, but you have to think bigger picture too. Like Coyle, again, he's going to be on that third line center role more than likely, I would think. But again, we're still keeping an eye on the development of a guy like Caden Lindstrom, who I don't think it's talked about enough in Blue Jackets circles, the absolute animal that this kid is going to be. I mean, I can't wait to see him put on the CBJ sweater and hit the ice in Columbus when he finally gets to. And I think he probably plays another year in junior, and that's great. He's in a good program in Medicine Hat. I don't think he's going to college. But you know what? He's got a great program he's a part of, and he's a big kid, and so he can continue to add on some weight and some muscle. And I'm telling you, when he makes the NHL, this kid is going to run people the fuck over playing down the middle. I can promise you that. So yeah, these guys aren't the sexiest moves up front, but they're guys that are going to be in the lineup every night. They're going to be effective. They're not going to be a liability, and they're allowing this time window for the young Columbus prospects to continue to grow and get better. I mentioned Lindstrom, but we're also talking about the young guys like Dalbel Belluz, who may even get a lot of looks in the NHL this year. You just don't know. A guy like a Hunter McCown, who's still, I think, pretty young, that could potentially make a name for himself. You don't know what you're going to get from these younger guys, but allowing them more time to develop by icing these guys who are trustworthy players, it's not the sexiest move, but it works.
Yeah. I'm with you 100%. Just the one thing I want to say real quick, I think Luca Delbo Belluz needs to be on this roster.
He probably does, yeah. I think it's about finding him the right. It's about finding him the right line mates, and I think that might be something they work on as a project this year. But I think you're 100% right. It's probably time. It's time to. I don't want to say shit or get off the pot, because one more year of development won't kill this kid, but when you see the potential there, you're like, just fucking throw him in the lineup and see what happens. Who cares? Like, just let him run wild with it, even if it's only for 10 games or so. Just let him run wild with it and see what you have.
Right.
So I'm with you. I'm with you. Absolutely.
Okay. All right. Well, let's move on down.
Yeah, let's jump to the defense. Now, it's good. Let me tell you, as good as the forwards were, Zach Werenski.
Yes.
With the season of the eternity, the weight of the world, it's tough to remember sometimes that Zach Werenski is not the captain of this team, because he carries the team and himself like he is. And that's not a diss on Boone Jenner, because he is this team's captain through and through. Absolutely. But Werenski, you talk about a driving force, a defenseman almost single-handedly dragging a team into the playoffs. I mean, as good as a lot of the forwards were this year, I mean, all the point production was really from Zach Werenski. I can't believe he didn't win the Norris Trophy. I mean, I can. I mean, McCarr's a good player, let's be honest. But I can't believe that he didn't win the Norris. And I mean, the fact that he was getting MVP consideration to me was nuts. I mean, this defensive group, everybody chipped in a little bit in some capacity this year. You know, I think Provorov was solid and, again, earned his extension. Fabro earned his extension as well. That trade worked out fantastic for the Jackets. Yes. I 100%. I mean, he's fit right in. He hasn't been glamorous or anything, but he's done exactly what's been expected of him. He's not a liability. Denton Matejchuk, again, was called on to kind of have an elevated role this year, and I thought he did great. The third pair with Severson and Jake Christensen leaves a little to be desired some nights, but even they weren't awful. Like Severson, again, for his role, is just fine. I'd say for the most part. I think part of it was having two shitty goalies behind him too, which we'll get to. But as a group, and especially Zach Werenski, this defensive core really held the fort this year with all the cards stacked against them.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. And, you know, you have to give props to Zach Werenski. This guy came in with this team this year in the face of a tragedy and picked him up, put him on his back and said, all right, you guys follow me and we'll be fine. And that's exactly what happened. And I think had the Jackets actually made the playoffs, he might have won MVP.
Yeah.
I mean, I think he was already worthy of it.
82 points in 81 games this year. He was over a point a game as a defenseman, which, again, that's what gets you in the Norris conversation. I mean, there's a reason the other two Norris nominees were Quinn Hughes and Cale Makar, the only other guys in the league who can, I mean, even hold a candle to the season he just had on the back end this year. And that's not to take away from other elite defenders, but I mean, given the situation, the tragedy that happened before training camp even started, with the deck already stacked against them on paper going into this past season, the team didn't look that great. Everything stacked up to this guy who we know is a good defender was probably just going to have another pretty good season. Nobody, I bet you fucking zero people predicted this guy to be point a game and drag this team to be within a point of the playoffs.
No, and if you remember before the season started, you and I picked this team to be damn near dead last in the league. So yeah, I mean that just goes to show you. And you know, another thing that goes a long way, I mentioned it earlier in the show, and I say it a lot. Chemistry is probably I would argue one of the biggest keys to success here. For any team, you can put all the talent on one team. I don't care if they don't jive well. Hell, look at Nashville; they're stacked and they sucked. So, yeah. And I mean, another team that I think proves this example is like the 2017-2018 Vegas Golden Knights, their first year in the league. They didn't have anybody reputable on that team for the most part, except Fleury, who was the biggest name on that team. And then
that's a point of contention for a lot of people, because some people have consumed enough bath salts that they're convinced that Vegas was quote unquote gifted a good team, which they were very not. That's another group that came together and were like, fuck that, we're going to prove everybody wrong. That nobody was
a tragedy. You remember Vegas had that shooting right before the season started.
Yeah, that was days before the season started. Yeah, so that's a whole different conversation. But you're absolutely on. You know, I think that's still an apples to apples comparison. It's exactly the same as low expectation, unbelievable performance. I mean, Vegas took it almost to a championship, which was nuts. But you know, Vegas didn't have Elvis Merzlikins as their goalie either. So correct. That's the difference. But by the way, Jackets 2 points out of the playoffs this year, not one. But had they won one more game this season, they would have been in. So it is what it is. But yeah, for Zach, just an unreal year. And you look at Columbus's cap situation too. I mean, it's dealer's choice for them, really. I mean, $16 million in cap space, nobody making a ton of money, deals that don't work out for the team, they can easily move. The guys that are on expiring deals, there's not a lot where Fantilli's going to be the one after this season we're going to have to open up the pocketbook, and Jet Greaves as well, who we'll get to in a little bit. But there's not a lot of guys where they're going to have to pay so much money that they're going to eat up all this free cap space. And so I like the spot they're in right now with this group. And just everything that was, again, with the expectations being, I would say, very low going into the season, they quickly turned the ship around, and now it seems like, okay, what can we do to now make this team contending and getting into the playoffs as soon as next season? Because they're right now, it feels like they're right there, and I think that's a perfect time to transition into the goalies. So we'll get to Jet in a little bit, but they go through this year with Elvis and Daniil Tarasov in net. And
Yep,
I'll let
that's
you
it.
go first on this. Yeah, I'll let you go first on this. What are your thoughts on the performances we got out of the two Jackets goalies this season?
Whatever the opposite of extremely impressed is, that's how I feel. I've already pretty much said my piece on Daniil Tarasov. Not a whole lot to say. You know, I watched him a couple of times this year. A couple of them were in Cleveland when he was on a conditioning stint, and he got lit up down in Cleveland. You could argue part of that was the team in front of him, but he let in quite a few softies in a minor league game. So it was just like, okay. But the biggest disappointment for me has got to be Elvis Merzlikins. He's not a number one guy. There's just too much inconsistency there, which we would argue you don't want in a backup either. But I would argue goaltending is this team's biggest downfall right now. I think you look at, how we just talked about the forwards and the defensemen. I think up front, everybody's fine. It's the crease you got to worry about right now. And, we'll get to Jet, but your problem is in net right now. And Elvis Merzlikins, he's just too inconsistent. And it's not, when I say he's too inconsistent, I don't mean he's either terrible or he's great. He has some great games, but he's usually either completely off or all right. And then once in a while, there's a great game in there.
Well, to drive home the point, I got some numbers here. First of all, for Tarasov this season, 7-10-2, 354 goals against average, 881 save percentage. Translation is not good. Yeah. So all those numbers were bad. He was the backup, but it just felt like he looked pretty rough almost every night. There was a couple games where he was good. Obviously, he had the shutout as well, but Elvis too only had one shutout this year. So Elvis, I want to dive into this a little more because again, he was the team starter. So to your point on Elvis, with the exception of 1 year, his save percentage has gone down every season he's been in the league. His first year in the league, 33 games played, 235 goals against average, 923 save percentage. Very good. 5 shutouts too. His first season, everyone's like, holy fuck, watch out for this guy. Second season, 916 save percentage. It was 28 games, 277 goals against, 916 save percentage, 2 shutouts. Pretty good year still. I mean, again, for a young goalie, you're like, hey, you'll take that. You're not going to be a 920 something every year, and that's fine. Third year, 907, 59 games played, so way bigger sample size. 907 save percentage, 322 goals against average. Quite a bit of a step back, but again, it's his first year with a huge workload like that. I mean, he played almost 60 games, so you chalk that up maybe to some growing pains, and then it falls off a cliff. 2022, 2023, 30 games played, a 423 goals against average, 876 save percentage. It was just an awful season. It was the worst year of his career. There's just no way around it. It was a bad season. He was bad. It is what it is. 2023, 2024, 41 games played, 345 goals against average, 897 save percentage. So he gets the save percentage back up a little bit and the goals against average back down, which some people would say, oh, that's an improvement. But with how bad the prior season was, you would hope, I mean, it felt like there was only up to go. You couldn't go any lower than that and still be in the NHL. So he rebounds, but doesn't even get back to above 900. Then this season, 53 games played, 318 goals against average, 892 save percentage. It's just not good enough. That's 4 years in a row of real regression. It felt like after 2 solid years, maybe 3-ish solid years to start his career, but essentially for sure 3 years of regression. And it really just never shows signs of getting better. I will say to your point of his inconsistency too. I mean, to finish the season, here are his save percentages for his last 5 games, and I'll end on the most recent. So we'll go from least recent to most recent. His save percentages, his final 5 games of the year, which were all actually within a week of each other. It looks like. Let's see. Here we go. 857, 750, 815, then 957 and 943.
All right.
So he's just all over the place, but it doesn't feel like the improvement's in sight. Don Waddell challenged him before the season started, saying, hey, look, nobody wanted to trade for him because he just isn't that good. He needs to be better. It's as simple as that. And there was none of that this year. As close as this team was to the playoffs, it really feels like that any other goalie would have got him there, because I didn't think the defense was a liability most night. And when you look how bad his save percentage was, it's pretty clear that he was the issue. He wasn't facing a shitload of shots. And, Columbus, let me put it this way. Columbus had one of the highest scoring offenses in the league this year. So scoring wasn't the issue. And you look on the defensive side and say, well, they allowed too many goals. But then you have to look deeper and say, is this on the defense or is this on Elvis? And you just look at his numbers, and with the GAA and the save percentage both being that high, it's just looking like he allows a lot of shots or a lot of goals on not a lot of shots. And that's just what it is with him. And I mean, like you said, it's either really bad or it's just all right. And unfortunately, that's not good enough. It's not. And so as much as I dumped on Jet Greaves, not dumped on, but I wasn't very favorable in my opinions of him for the most part. And I said it on this show that I wasn't for a while. But to Jet's credit, this year, 11 games played, 191 goals against average, 938 save percentage. That's a really small sample size, but that's given that it was at the most clutch time of the year. He played like their final 5 games. Yeah. And his save percentages in those games which included 2 shutouts, by the way. 951 save percentage, 1.00, so perfect save percentage. 968, shutout, 973. He didn't his last 5 games of the year he played, he did not have a save percentage under 950. Now, he got peppered in a couple of those games, 41 shots against, 22 shots against, wasn't crazy, but 31 shots against, 37 shots against, 29 shots against. But the workload for him didn't matter. He was consistent. He didn't look out of position. He looked comfortable. He looked like he was seeing the puck well. If we're going to turn the page on the Blue Jackets and get into an era where this team is a contender, this is the guy you need to give the reins to in the net.
I've been saying it for a while now,
yes,
to a point where you and I had differing opinions on Jet Greaves, but I've been watching this guy every week in person for the last 2 seasons down in Cleveland. I mean, I know what he's capable of. He's a phenomenal goalie, even down in Cleveland. I
lost you.
Team in front of him, and he comes up and makes these phenomenal, huge saves. And there were times where the Monsters just played so horrendously that even he couldn't do anything for him. But he comes up every time they called him up this year to Columbus, he came through for them. And that's the thing. And especially those last 5 games of the season where they were playing their most hard-fought, intense hockey of the season, trying to get into the playoffs. And he comes through and posts 2 shutouts for them. And mind you, back-to-back shut. It wasn't just 2. They were back-to-back shutouts. So that's another thing worth mentioning. This is the guy you need to give the chance to. Look, I know Merzlink has been your guy for the last several seasons, but he's not your number one guy. You need to give Jet the chance here. And then if he underperforms, okay, we were all wrong. Then you'll start looking into some other options. What can you do? But I do know this. The guy has proved that he deserves a shot. Yeah. Who can it be?
That's what I thought of when you were saying that.
Yeah. But I'm telling you, this is the guy you need to give a chance to. He's proved himself every time you've brought him back up, and then he goes down in the minors and does the same thing still. So give this guy a shot. You know, I remember when I initially brought this up, you said, I think he could still use some more development time. I mean, I would argue most young guys could always use some more development time, but when you're in the situation you're in right now as the Blue Jackets, it's time to just put the pedal to the floor and see what this guy can give you. I mean, the worst thing that's going to happen out of it is it doesn't work out, which is already not working out with Elvis. So what do you have to lose at this point? Give him a shot. You know what he's capable of. I would argue he has more than proved himself capable. I think this is the right move. You got to bring Jet up, and I think you make him the starter to start the season, obviously dependent on what happens during training camp, all that good stuff. But give him the start in net and see how things play out with him in net and with Elvis as the backup, and see where we go from there. Because their other goaltender in the minors right now, Zach Sawchenko, I'm not impressed.
Terrible.
By him. I'm not. Yeah.
He looks like a mess. But the Jackets, to their credit, they have a couple of other goalie prospects that I think are still in junior right now. So, I mean, there is potential there for them to restock that group of goalies in their developmental system. But yeah, you're right. For Jet, the times now, I think it's important for this team. Again, two tragic losses of life within this organization over the last couple of years. Obviously, the Matisse incident on July 4th several years ago was another tough one as well, and then obviously this past year with Johnny. I think the organization, as important it is emotionally for the team to turn the page and start the next chapter, I think it's just as important from a hockey aspect too. It's time to turn the page and, okay, look, we went through some struggles for a lot of years, but there's something here now. It's time to start building up, and it starts with the next generation of players. So, sticking Elvis in the back seat so you can give Jet the reins to start, and letting these younger guys slot up and higher up in the lineup and take chances with these guys and put them in the situations where they need to learn to thrive. Fantilli, Kent Johnson, Luca Del Bel Baluz, if he gets the chance that he deserves. Denton Matejchuk too. He's only 21 on the back end. I mean, he's on his ELC for God's sake.
And he had a great season.
Yeah, and he did exactly what was asked of him. I thought he was very effective. And so, and again, I like that Fabro stays there too, just to provide support for him too, because that way they don't have to shove him into the top pairing every night. Look, I think it's important that this group, and it's tough when it's a loss of life and a tragedy like this, but the healing process has begun, I think. And I think having a good season like this helped. It helped, I think, in a lot of ways, take people's minds off of what has happened. And so I think for the fans and for the organization, it's time to start the next chapter of we're building this team into a contender. And it's an exciting time, I think, for Blue Jackets fans. The games are already fun to go to, even when they were god awful. I mean, that arena can get really loud. But man, when we were at that Stadium Series game and I know it was controversial, but they scored late to take the lead. I'm like, it was so loud. It was nuts.
Yeah. That was one of my favorite hockey moments in my life that I was in person for. Yeah,
that was cool. I'll tell you what, this is an exciting time to be a Blue Jackets fan. It really is. And I think the fans deserve this in so many ways, just as far as just from a hockey aspect. It's like, they've been a team this is their 25th year in the league. It's time to really build something to be truly proud of. And I know they had, 2 good seasons or whatever under Torts, but this is the time to really build a team to be really proud of. And I think under Don Waddell's management, I think we're getting there, and it's exciting to watch.
I agree. And I'm going to end my spiel on this by saying one thing, and we'll revisit this more obviously when we do our season preview show for the next season. But I'm going to say this: you put Jet Greaves in net, and maybe give Luca Del Bel Baluz his shot, and this team makes the playoffs this season. And I'm going to leave it at that.
I'm with you there. I'm with you. I think Jet is the final piece to the puzzle to get this team into the postseason.
100%.
All right. Well, that was, you look back and it seems like in a blink of an eye, so much shit happens. I mean, this season my wife and I picked up our whole lives and moved 6 hours away from home, a week and a half after this season started. And between getting our life situated and set up over here after the move and just making trips back home to visit family and living life and spending time with you and your wife and just all the stuff we do day to day. It's amazing how quick this whole hockey season went by. It feels like it was just yesterday that we're moving here, and now we've already been here for 9 months. So it's just crazy. It all goes by in seemingly an instant when you look back, but it's always a lot of fun. I had a blast doing the show this year, and I'm looking forward to doing it again in the fall. But in the same respect, with how chaotic it's been, especially the last few weeks, I think I'm ready for a break too.
Yeah, I agree. And granted, I just got back from a 2-week vacation, but which, by the way, I do have to commend you for doing 2 shows by yourself, 2 long shows, I should say, by yourself.
A free agency show was tough, man. I actually got sick last Sunday. My throat got so sore from doing that show. Probably from about lunchtime or dinner time till I went to bed. I felt like absolute shit last week.
Yeah, I got to commend you for carrying the show while I was out. And good job. I did listen to both episodes. I thought you did well. To nobody's surprise, obviously.
Yeah. What I learned from that is that there's no way we can do this show without the both of us here, because nobody's vocal cords are designed for this shit. I can tell you that.
Yeah. So it was a fun second season of this show. We got to thank Xenopucks as always for sponsoring our show. I've got to imagine from the sound of it that they're going to be our main sponsor again next season and for the foreseeable future. They've just been great to us. They're great guys. Our goal is to get them on the show this upcoming season. A special thank you to the guests we had on this year as well. Ben, Mark, Andrew Dibbs from the Kalkaska Battlers. It was just a good season. And this show has turned out to be more than we ever thought it would. And we're having fun doing it. And I mean, it gives us a chance to come on here and just ramble about hockey to each other.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's been a blast. And, I tried to get Ben Polacco on while you were gone, just because I'm like, for the free agency show, because I'm like, this is going to be a freaking gong show. And unfortunately, obviously, Ben's a very busy guy. When you own your own business, you're always on the move. So unfortunately, I wasn't able to get him on, and I couldn't ask Mark Mowers to come on because he works for an NHL team. So yeah. I don't think that would have been appropriate. I don't even think he would have been allowed to. I don't know, but I wasn't going to put him in a spot where it was even a question, because obviously we love Mao a lot, but we respect his job, and I'm scared of Bill Guerin, so I'm not going to do anything that would make him mad at me. But couldn't have him on, so that kind of stunk. But we're going to try and get those guys on, and like you said, get the guys from Xenopucks on. That's been a long time coming, and it may be something where if we can work it out even over the course of this summer, if we can do a little interview with them, we'll just post a little something throughout the summer. But as far as off-season plans go, I would expect us to be off until probably the week before training camp. I think the September 7th, I believe, is the week of the 14th in September, Sunday the 14th. I think that's the week training camp starts. So whatever week that ends up being, we'll figure it out, but we'll be back the week before then. So just tune in for, look for us to drop a show probably in very early September. And then, these 2 months off are very much needed. I feel like I'm just exhausted.
Yeah, well, and I mean, we both have things we have to do. I mean, we're going to be busy anyway. But I just want to say, if you wrote into the show this year, thank you very much for that. Special shout out to our friend Don, who's written in multiple times this season. In addition to that, to all of you who listen to our show and make this show possible, thank you on behalf of both of us, because without you guys, this show doesn't exist. It was a fun season. It ended the way I wanted it to. Whether or not all of you feel the same, so be it.
I'm going to go with most people, probably not, but it's a hot button issue. I think in 5 years, when people will look back, they'll get over themselves about the Panthers.
I agree. And, but in the meantime, make sure you follow us on social media, Instagram and Facebook at Fresh Ice Hockey Podcast. You can follow us on TikTok at Fresh Ice Pod. If you want to send us anything email wise over the summer, email us. The email address is freshicehockeypodcast@gmail.com. We do have a second one, but it's out of commission right now, so we'll just steer clear of that. I have some work I have to do behind the scenes for this show as far as website and email and things like that, to improve the quality of this show for all of you who listen. It's been a fun year. We're looking forward to next season, but for right now, everybody just enjoy the summer, and we will see you next season on the Fresh Ice Hockey Podcast.